A sudden, chilling silence falls. The point man freezes, hand raised. 40 Marines tense, weapons ready, eyes scanning the dense jungle ahead. But 20 meters back, a Navajo scout named Samuel Manuelito isn't looking forward. His gaze is fixed on the ground. He raises his own hand, a silent, urgent command. Stop. The enemy isn't ahead. They are already here. Burma, September 1944. The air hangs thick and humid, a suffocating blanket over the Marine raiders of the 3rd Patrol Company. Staff Sergeant Thomas Reeves wipes sweat from his brow, his uniform clinging to him like a second skin. 5 days deep in this green hell, and they've found nothing but ghosts. Every rustle, every shadow, a potential Japanese sniper. Every step a gamble. Their mission: locate and neutralize enemy positions disrupting Allied supply lines. Their reality: an invisible enemy that melts into the foliage, striking from mere feet away before vanishing. Frustration gnaws at the men. They are trained for combat, for direct engagement, but this jungle warfare is a different beast entirely. It's a war of whispers and unseen threats. Suddenly, the point man, Corporal Miller, signals. A flicker of movement, a barely perceptible shift in the undergrowth ahead. Adrenaline surges through the patrol. This is it. 40 Marines, hardened veterans of Guadalcanal and Tarawa, prepare to advance, their hearts pounding against their ribs. They tighten their grips on their M1 Garands, ready to unleash a torrent of fire into the suspected enemy position. But then, the unexpected. 20 meters behind them, where the patrol's Navajo scout, Samuel Manuelito, walks with an almost supernatural quietness, he stops dead. His eyes are not on the distant movement. They are on the ground, fixed on something only he can see. He raises his hand, palm out, a gesture that screams absolute, immediate halt. The patrol freezes, confused. The enemy isn't ahead. Manuelito's silent signal implies something far more terrifying. The enemy is already around them. The American military doctrine, forged in the vast open battlefields of Europe and the island-hopping campaigns of the Pacific, was ill-suited for the Burmese jungle. Marine raiders were elite, aggressive, trained for rapid movement and direct engagement. Their motto, find, fix, and destroy, worked wonders against entrenched positions on Iwo Jima or the beaches of Tarawa. But Burma was different. The jungle was a living, breathing entity, a labyrinth of tangled vines, towering trees, and oppressive humidity. Visibility rarely extended beyond 10 meters. This environment rendered traditional tactics obsolete. The Japanese, however, were masters of this domain. They had honed their jungle warfare skills for years, fighting in the dense forests of China since 1937. Their doctrine of Gyokusai, fighting to the death, combined with an almost fanatical dedication to extreme camouflage, made them terrifyingly effective. Japanese snipers would remain motionless for 12, sometimes 24 hours, buried in spider holes, perched in tree platforms, or concealed beneath layers of vegetation. American patrols would walk right past them, often within arm's reach, without ever detecting their presence. The casualty rate among Marine raiders in Burma was staggering. 40% of their losses came from ambushes. These weren't pitched battles. They were sudden, brutal attacks from an unseen foe. You never see them until they fire, Staff Sergeant Reeves would later recount, his voice still carrying the weight of those memories. And by then it's too late. They just disappear back into the green. Captain Richard Winters, a composite figure representing the frustrated leadership, once remarked, "We're hunting in their living room, but we're blind. They know every crack in the floorboards, every shadow, every hiding spot. We're just stumbling around in the dark." The jungle became a graveyard for the unwary, a place where the enemy held every advantage, and American lives were being expended at an unsustainable rate. A new approach was desperately needed, something beyond firepower and conventional tactics. The jungle demanded a different kind of vision, a different kind of understanding. Amidst this desperate struggle, a hidden asset emerged: the Navajo code talkers. While celebrated for their unbreakable radio codes, many possessed another, equally vital skill. They were natural scouts and trackers. Growing up on vast reservations, often in remote, rugged terrain, they learned to read the land with an intimacy few outsiders could comprehend. Their childhoods were spent tracking deer, coyotes, and lost sheep across the deserts and forests of Arizona and New Mexico. It was a cultural tradition, passed down through generations, understanding animal behavior, recognizing subtle changes in the environment, and cultivating an almost infinite patience. Samuel Manuelito was one such man. He grew up in the shadow of Canyon de Chelly, learning from his grandfather that the land always tells the truth. You just have to listen. He could discern the faint imprint of a moccasin on a rock, the direction of a broken twig, the age of a disturbed patch of earth. Recruited for the Code Talker program, his exceptional tracking abilities quickly earned him a place in reconnaissance units, a role far removed from a radio set. Initially, the Marines were skeptical. "We don't need nature lessons," one gruff sergeant scoffed. "We need firepower and intel." Manuelito, a quiet man of few words, simply observed. He understood their skepticism, their reliance on what they knew, but he also knew the jungle held secrets they were blind to. "You're walking on a story," he once told Reeves, his voice soft but firm. "You just can't read it yet." On his first patrol with the Raiders, Manuelito insisted on a drastically slower pace. Every 200 meters, he would halt the patrol, demanding silent observation. The Marines grumbled. "We'll never find the enemy at this pace," they complained, eager to push forward, to engage. Manuelito's response was a quiet revelation. "We already found them 3 times, you just didn't see it." He would point to a barely disturbed leaf, a faint scuff mark, a subtle change in the air. The Marines were baffled. They saw nothing, but Manuelito saw everything. He saw the invisible narrative of the jungle, a story written in the smallest details, waiting for someone to read it. The true breakthrough came on September 16, 1944. The patrol was halted on a particularly dense section of jungle trail, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Manuelito crouched low, his eyes scanning the ground with an intensity that seemed to pierce the very fabric of the jungle floor. The Marines, accustomed to his strange habits, watched him with a mixture of curiosity and impatience. He pointed to a patch of grass directly in their path. To the untrained eye, it was just grass, part of the endless green tapestry. "Look closer," Manuelito murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "Not at the grass, at the light." The Marines squinted, trying to discern what he saw. Then, Manuelito began his lesson, a lesson that would save countless lives. He explained the visual science of the jungle floor. Every blade of grass, every leaf, had 2 distinct sides. The top side, exposed to the sun, was a rich, dark green, saturated with chlorophyll. The bottom side, protected from direct light, was a paler, often silvery green. When someone or something stepped on this grass, it didn't just flatten. It bent and twisted, exposing its lighter, silvery underside. In the filtered, dappled light of the jungle canopy, these pale patches didn't just blend in. They glowed. They reflected the light differently, creating subtle, almost imperceptible bright spots against the darker, uniform green. These were the silent signals, the whispers of passage. But the most critical element, the true genius of Manuelito's observation, was the temporal aspect. The grass, he explained, was a biological clock. If the bent grass was still moving slowly, almost imperceptibly, returning to its vertical position, it meant the disturbance had occurred less than 5 minutes ago. This was fresh bent grass, a warning of immediate danger. If the grass was fully bent, but no longer moving, it indicated passage within the last 5 to 30 minutes. This was recent bent grass, a sign that the enemy was close, perhaps setting an ambush. If the grass was partially recovered with a mixed light pattern, it meant the disturbance was older, perhaps 30 minutes or more. The jungle, chaotic and impenetrable, suddenly transformed into a precise, temporal map. Manuelito then provided a chilling demonstration. He traced a path of these glowing bent blades leading not along the main trail, but subtly off into the dense undergrowth. The Marines followed his gaze, their eyes now beginning to discern the faint, silvery sheen. The bent grass was still moving, rising slowly, like it was breathing. Manuelito followed this almost invisible trail for 15 meters, deeper into the thick vegetation, until it ended abruptly. There, perfectly concealed, was a spider hole, a small camouflaged dugout with clear sight lines to the main trail. It was a sniper's nest. The position was empty, but the ground inside was still warm, freshly abandoned. Manuelito looked at the stunned Marines, his face impassive. "He was here 3 minutes ago," he stated, his voice quiet. "He heard us stop and ran." The grass had not only revealed the enemy's presence but also their exact timing. The jungle had spoken, and Manuelito had translated its deadly message. The discovery of the bent grass detail fundamentally altered the Marine Raiders' approach to jungle warfare. Manuelito, once viewed with skepticism, became an invaluable instructor. For 2 weeks, he dedicated himself to teaching the Marines his unique tracking techniques. He didn't just teach them about grass. He taught them to read broken twigs, disturbed moss, the subtle displacement of stones, the faint scent of human presence. It was a complete system of observation, a shift in mindset from hunting to reading. The Marines learned to move slower, to observe longer, to see what they had previously overlooked. They learned to trust the whispers of the jungle. The effectiveness of this new training was put to the test in October 1944, during Operation Silent Owl. The raiders were tasked with locating a suspected Japanese supply cache deep within enemy territory. As they moved cautiously along a narrow path, Corporal James Mitchell, one of Manuelito's most attentive students, spotted the telltale pattern of bent grass. The grass was fully bent, not yet recovering, indicating passage within the last 10 to 15 minutes. But crucially, the pattern led not towards their objective nor directly along the trail. It led away from the main path, curving subtly into the dense undergrowth, parallel to their current position. Mitchell's heart pounded. He realized with a jolt, "They're not ahead. They're flanking us. They're setting up an ambush from behind." The Marines, now trained to trust these subtle signs, silently repositioned. Instead of continuing forward, they melted into the jungle, following the faint trail of bent grass. What they discovered confirmed Mitchell's chilling premonition. A Japanese ambush team, perfectly camouflaged, was setting up positions behind where the Marine patrol had been. Their plan was clear: let the Americans pass, then hit them from the rear, cutting off their retreat. But thanks to the bent grass, the ambush was reversed. The Marines, now the hunters, set their own counter-ambush. The ensuing engagement was swift and decisive. 12 Japanese soldiers were killed, and the Marine Raiders suffered 0 casualties. The bent grass had not only warned them of danger, but had allowed them to turn the tables, saving the entire patrol. By November 1944, grass spotting became standard training for Marine Raiders. Other indigenous scouts, including Filipino guerrillas and Pacific Islander guides, shared similar methods, reinforcing the value of local knowledge. Casualty rates in ambush situations for trained units plummeted by an astonishing 60%. The technique, born in the jungles of Burma, spread to the Philippines campaign in 1945, proving that sometimes the smallest detail can make the biggest difference. The story of the bent grass is not an isolated incident in military history. It is a recurring pattern, a testament to the enduring power of indigenous knowledge in specific terrains. During World War II, Finnish White Death snipers famously read snow patterns to track Soviet troops. In the 1960s, Vietnamese trackers, both Viet Cong and local guides working with American forces, navigated the dense jungles by reading disturbed earth, broken branches, and subtle changes in vegetation. Decades later, in the 1980s, Afghan mujahideen used their intimate knowledge of the mountainous terrain to read stone displacement and faint tracks, outmaneuvering Soviet forces. The common thread in all these instances is clear. Indigenous knowledge, deeply rooted in a specific environment, often provides a tactical advantage that foreign military doctrine, however sophisticated, simply cannot replicate. Why did it work so effectively? It wasn't mysticism or some innate natural gift. It was science combined with cultural observation. The Navajo scouts weren't born with these skills. They were culturally trained from childhood. Their knowledge was systematic, a complex understanding of ecosystems, animal behavior, and human interaction with the environment. The bent grass technique was just one tool in a comprehensive tracking system, a single chapter in a vast book of jungle lore. Yet despite its proven efficacy, a tragic pattern of institutional amnesia often followed these conflicts. After World War II, the military largely reverted to conventional approaches, In Korea and Vietnam, American forces were forced to relearn the same painful lessons about tracking, patience, and the invaluable role of indigenous scouts. The cycle repeated itself in Afghanistan and Iraq, where local guides and interpreters once again became crucial for understanding the terrain and the subtle signs of enemy activity. The military, it seemed, would forget, then relearn from locals, only to forget again. The tragic irony extends to the very heroes of this story. Samuel Manuelito and thousands of Navajo code talkers, whose skills saved countless American lives, returned home to reservations where they still faced discrimination and were often denied basic citizenship rights. Their contributions, though monumental, were institutionally forgotten for decades. It wasn't until 2001 that the code talkers finally received the congressional gold medals they so richly deserved, a belated recognition for their profound impact. Back in September 1944, the patrol was frozen, every Marine holding their breath. Manuelito's hand was still raised, his eyes fixed on the ground. He pointed, and this time the Marines saw it. The faint silvery sheen of bent grass. It was moving, slowly, rising, not just in one spot but in a wide arc, revealing a 270-degree ambush position. Japanese soldiers, perfectly camouflaged, were hidden just 3 to 10 meters away, completely invisible in the dense vegetation. They were waiting. They were ready. But the grass had betrayed them. The Marines, under Manuelito's silent guidance, withdrew. No shots were fired, no lives were lost. They marked the positions, called in an artillery strike, and watched as the jungle erupted in fire. The ambush was destroyed before it could ever be sprung. Staff Sergeant Reeves, his face pale, looked at Manuelito. "We were dead men," he whispered, the realization chilling him to the bone. "We just didn't know it yet." Manuelito simply nodded, his gaze sweeping across the now silent jungle. "The grass knew," he said softly. "It always knows." In warfare, the smallest details often separate life from death. Survival doesn't come from strength or firepower alone. It comes from seeing what others miss, from understanding the subtle language of the environment. The bent grass wasn't magic. It was a testament to paying attention, to respecting the wisdom of those who truly understood the land. Thousands of Marines came home from the Pacific because a Navajo scout taught them to look down, not for enemy soldiers, but for grass that whispered the truth. If this story opened your eyes to history's hidden details, hit that subscribe button and join us for more untold tales. Drop a like if the bent grass technique amazed you, and leave a comment. What small detail do you think could change everything in a survival situation? Your insights matter. See you in the next story.